Hello and welcome to the latest in our video series. My name is Justin Cash, I'm the editor of Money Marketing, and today I've got Paul Yates from iPipeline. We're going to take on everything business protection. Paul, thanks so much for joining me. Excited to have you here.
Oh, thanks for having me, and excited to talk about business protection.
It always sounds sarcastic when I do that, but genuinely protection is something that's really close to my heart.
No, well, protection is hugely important, and it's not only hugely important for persons, individuals, it's important for businesses. So, and that's an area that we're going to talk about, but which is hugely underserved.
I would agree. So, million-dollar question to start. Is business protection worth advisors' time?
Well, it's massively valuable. If you actually look at the amount of value per case, business protection and relevant life will normally give you twice as much commission. It's twice as valuable from a cover amount as ordinary protection, but it is harder. It is a harder, a more specific area. And it's interesting, you know, when I look around and say who's writing business protection, if I look at our numbers, you'd probably say, well, there's about virtually all of it is wealth managers and a small amount of more traditional IFAs writing it.
Yeah.
That's about it. No one else is writing it other than a couple of specialists.
So how do we move those kind of smaller traditional IFAs up to the big wealth managers who have clearly got the processes in place?
Well, so number one, you have to work out what's stopping them doing it. I mean, you know, business protection can be complicated. You know, it can be a complex area. There's you know, trust forms. There's equalisation calculators. There's all sorts of stuff. So number one, we have to have the conversations. So the biggest thing of all is having conversations with people who run businesses. Yeah. Are we having enough conversations? Absolutely not. Are we having conversations where we talk to somebody from an individual working about their needs? Are we actually then talking about their business needs? Is there a bridge into that, a segue? And I don't think that's happening. So how do you do that? We have to have training, better training. We have to have some technology, I think, and processes put in place. We can see that when you put technology, processes and people together in the mortgage market, it's evolved enormously over the last couple of years. We just have to do something very similar in this area.
Yeah, no IFA client is going to go, oh, I've read about these things called a cross-option agreement.
Yes, well, I think we've got to start having those conversations. We've got to explain the risks. So we can do the same sorts of things we've done before, risk reports, telling people what the risks to their businesses are. I think the really good advisors partner up with other firms, accountants, etc. And actually, they will trigger the discussion off the back of a discussion on risks.
Yes.
And they will actually put it on their risk register, that the fact that the business has a risk. And then as soon as you have that on your risk register, you have to do something to mitigate it. Well, the obvious thing to do to mitigate it is to have the correct protections in place.
So is there a kind of almost a template, a question set in your fact find that can help IFAs with business owner clients to go, here's how I assess whether or not you need business protection?
So we would be doing basically the need generation tools to help people sort of sell in the concepts. We'll build that on top of fact finds, and that's how we would do it. Because you know, the fact finds themselves, the technology there would be in people like IntelliFlow systems, right? So it's about how they work together, how you place one on the other, and you use them to drive out those opportunities. There are not a lot of people using business fact finds, I don't think. I think there are many personal fact finds up to, or it's dealing with people who are dealing with businesses and them generating leads for you as a business.
How do we make the complex bits that you talked about more simple? How do I have that conversation as an advisor to go, look, I've talked about all these trusts and all the rest of it, but here is why you need this as a small business owner?
So I think there are a couple of areas. We can use sort of sales aids tools, interactive, personalised tools that can very quickly explain to you the risks, the costs, and that makes it very simple and easy. I think that's one area that we can do. But there's an enormous amount of support tools that the providers produce. There's about 9 companies, well, there was 10 until Old Mutual, unfortunately, decided to close.
Check out the website, our scoop on Friday.
Yes, and it's very sad to see that because they brought something quite different to protection and business protection. But there are 9 and they all have different tools. And so I think there's also a space as to what tools, how are you going to use them? can advisor firms think about, is there somewhere they can go to work out what to use, where to use it, how to use it? Have they got their own tools? So, the bigger wealth management firms will have their own specialists inside, and they'll be knowing that and doing it, and cases are passed to them. How do you do that for smaller firms? Perhaps we need some better technology to do that. So that's an area that we'll be looking at.
When you talk about those 9, 10 providers across the piece, what are the keys that you're seeing from them? Who's working with advisors better? Who's making this process easier? And why?
Okay, well, I mean, they've all got a number of tools, and those tools are really good. And some of them make them white labelable.
Yes.
So that's so intermediary firms can use those. All of them are in their extranet. Can they make them earlier and serve them out earlier in the process? I think that would be good. It's hard, but they all want to hold them in their systems. But they, when you look at Aegon, they do some really good stuff. I've seen, people talk about Aegon. Some of the Vitality stuff's really good. I've also seen, people talk about the AIG tools, and Legal & General does an enormous amount. So a lot of them do, and I'm not going to try and pick out one, but they all can do a lot more for you. I think support for this area isn't as strong, I think, as it used to be a couple of years ago. But I say that, and we're 30% up, our portal, on business protection, 30% up. Now, a large chunk of that growth is Relevant Life.
Yes.
But it has grown. It is a growing area, but it's still woefully small.
Yeah. So we've talked about complexity. Let's return to the other C word that you mentioned right at the top. Commission. Is it still a dirty word in the industry? Are we still going out to advisors and with the wrong message saying that actually if you do business protection you can get more commission, and that's what they bulk at?
Well, I think some of the wealth firms, some of the IFA firms will say, well, commission doesn't really fit their models that well. I personally think it should be all about the well-being of that business. It's all about making sure that business is well protected. If you're protecting that business really well and you go in and talk to a business about that, you can talk about all the other wealth components. So it's a bridge into from a business protection discussion to managing the wealth of the founders and the shareholders. I think it's a piece where you can go nil commission and just charge a fee. So you can do that. All I'm saying is some of these cases, some of the cases can be an enormous amount of value in them. And I've seen cases that as big as £20,000 commissions. Yeah. But they're not, those big ones generally aren't quick and easy pieces of work. Yeah. They do take time, do take effort, do take a lot of work from the provider as well to get them on, and they can take months.
But it fits quite nicely into this modern world of financial planning. We're talking about away from the kind of sales and commission model that we're looking at needs in a holistic sense. And you can write a great financial plan, but and great cash flow modelling, but that's all redundant if someone loses a key person at their firm.
So I have a personal experience of a friend of mine. He was my son's plays for a football team. His one of his colleagues on the football team's father, I know him quite well. He had a heart attack on the golf course and virtually died. Unfortunately, there was an air ambulance that was flying over at the time, landed. Took him to hospital, had a series of operations. Now, 2 years later, he's just managed to get to about 3 days a week. And his building partnership that he has had real issues. Had real issues. He's had to pump money in, draw down all his savings, take on extra borrowing just to keep that afloat. Yeah. But just at his time when he's in his 50s, when he should be actually contributing to his retirement. Yeah. So it's I call it a double whammy. Yes, and that is what it's all about, is protecting people and businesses properly.
Looks nice in a suitability report, doesn't it? If there's a market drop or there's a headwind, your client can come back and say, well, look, we did get you this payout on your main asset, your business.
Well, exactly right. If you do the right things for that person and for that person's business, you can't go wrong if you're doing it and you're really focused on them, not just on one part of them. I think part of my concern is that a number of IFA businesses have sort of withdrawn from protection, aren't thinking about protection or business protection, and therefore they're actually not doing this holistic financial planning job as I would thinks they should be doing.
After all of this, imagine if you're an IFA that still thinks, this isn't a market for me.
Yeah.
What are the keys to getting a good referral arrangement in place so that people can get covered if they need it?
So again, a good referral agreement would be going out, talking to people who have trusted relationships with their clients, are talking to them about their business risks and talking about their needs of a business, and are talking to the founders of those businesses or the shareholders and the key employees, and people that you can actually get, have the right sorts of leads to fit you as a business, because they've got to fit you as a business and has the right ethos. Yeah, so that's my view.
What about IFA firms themselves? Do you think enough of them, 90% of advisors still have 5 advisors or fewer in their firms, have key man cover in place for their own business?
Anecdotally, I've heard that it's very low. Anecdotally, I've heard it's very low. I haven't actually got the data for business protection to show how many of them are actually IFA firms, but I do actually have the data that shows you IP, and IP for individual advisors is about, we're running at about 7% of our users are buying their own IP. So they understand it and they're buying IP. I just don't think they're crossing it over to business protection well enough. But if they don't do it for themselves, will they think about doing it for their clients? That's part of the problem. And there's a lot of mortgage brokers for businesses just as important as IFAs, who clearly have the same issues and are writing no business protection at all.
So let's look 5, 10 years down the future, whatever happens with Brexit and markets. Are you optimistic or pessimistic that advisors are going to have enough protection in place for their clients, particularly when it comes to their clients' businesses in this environment?
So I'm a born optimist. I'm a born optimist, so I will believe that we can do it. But I'm an optimist because I've had a number of examples where we're working in very strong collaborations. So collaboration with providers, with advisory businesses, with partners who can generate leads, and with technology, all to try and make that smoother and faster and easier. And that's what it's all about, that partnership. That partnership really does reap rewards. And it's only by doing that and looking at all the components, people, processes and technology, that you can get things to move. So I think that's moving that way, and people are collaborating more, and technology is improving enormously. And between that and the will of the advisory businesses, then I think I am positive, yes.
Well, that's an optimistic note to end on then. Paul, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for watching. You can see more great blogs, Q&As, head-to-heads and videos on the Money Marketing Protection Zone. Just go onto the Protection tab on the homepage of the website and you'll find everything there. Thanks again for watching.